hope to get to the right result. Without preempting what the findings of that select committee are, I think it's important that due to the collusion of the police and security forces into blacklisting electricians and plumbers and people from the construction industry, I think it's important that we do have a public inquiry about that. So without further ado, I'll ask Neil Findlay to come up and address you.
I'm a wee bit taller and short arse McGovern, so I'll just stand here if you don't mind. Can I make an appeal to the organisers, Unite and the other unions? The next meeting is in July in Benidorm or somewhere like that, no in bloody Dundee in the winter. I know there's a number of people here for a number of different construction trades, and I'm one of the cream of the construction industry. I was a bricklayer to trade, I'm sure you all know that. But when I worked in the industry, you used to sit in the huts at peacetime, and people speculated about blacklisting and what was happening in the industry. But we didn't have the evidence. We didn't have the evidence of what was happening. But we have the evidence now, and that is the main thing that's changed. And we have the evidence because a few people, just a small number of people, were unwilling to accept that blacklisting didn't happen when they knew it did. And they've been campaigning on this for years, and their campaign is now coming to a conclusion, hopefully, with justice. Now, I think when we look at what's happened over the last couple of years and the investigation that's been done, I think the Scottish Affairs Committee deserve great credit for the work that they've done. Jim and his colleagues across all the political parties on the committee, and they have done a very serious piece of work and unearthed all the scurrilous and immoral activities organisations like the Consultant Association, and who funded them and why they were funded. And the reality is that we now have that information, it's all been exposed, and we now need to see action. And one thing we shouldn't forget in all this, people were blacklisted. What was the crimes that they were supposed to have committed? The crime of looking out for their fellow workers, people that they work beside, their colleagues and people who they relied on, people who were unwilling to accept any danger at work, crap conditions, poor facilities, and this was regarded as a crime, and a crime that they shouldn't be employed for. I think that is nothing short of a scandal, and it's clearly down to just companies looking to increase their profits and squeeze as much out of the system as they possibly can. I'm sure that the chief executive of McAlpine's doesn't eat his executive lunch in a crappy old hut whenever he washes his hands and have to do the toilet outside half the time. I'm sure he would not tolerate that. And of course it wasn't just people who were involved in health and safety or union activity who were being victimised. We've got environmental activists, we've got people who weren't involved in any of that stuff. Actually people, I was showing some of the extracts for the Consultant Association database. People who were saying things like, he may not be a communist but his father certainly was, and they were put on the list. It's kind of like the police saying, well, he didn't rob the bank but his dad robbed the bank, so we'll put the two of them away. It's just absolutely crazy stuff that was going on. The question we move to now is, what are we going to do about it? That's the next step. What is going to be done about this? In the Scottish Parliament, nobody was interested in this until I started speaking to Ian Davison and his colleagues about what we could do in Scotland and started campaigning on it. We had a meeting the other week in the Parliament where we had the unions were invited, various people were invited. Francie and Stuart were invited, but they didn't turn up, and I'm saying to myself, I bet they pair of bastards are in the boozer. I went home at night, put the telly on, and there's a clip of us in the Parliament, then they cut out of the boozer and the two of them were sitting there. I said, I knew it. So anyway, that was to discuss what was going to happen next. So there's now started to be a bit of movement in government. One of the ministers responsible started to put stuff out in the press last week that there's through the new procurement process that's coming, procurement bill that's coming up in the Parliament this year, that there might be changes, and that's certainly what I'm looking at. If the government don't put systems in place to prevent blacklisting in the procurement bill, then I will be moving an amendment to the procurement bill to try and ensure that this is going to be outlawed. And can I also, I've got a list here and I'll tell you why this is so important. I asked a parliamentary question a few weeks ago asking how many companies who were named on the Consultant Association's list have been given public contracts in Scotland. And none of the names that are on this will surprise you. Since 2007, the Scottish Government and its agencies have awarded contracts to the following companies who were named by the Information Commissioner as subscribing to the Consultant Association. AME Infrastructure, AME Roads, Bailey Maintenance, Balfour Beatty Civil and Engineer, BAM Nuttall, Carillion, Langer, Morrison Construction, the Fourth Crossing Bridge Constructors Joint Venture, including Skanska and McAlpine's, Norwest, etc. They're all there. Every one of the big players in the construction industry in Scotland were subscribing to the Consultant Association, and we have been handing them public sector money, public sector contracts, your cash, your tax money, and that is nothing short of a scandal that has to stop. So let's continue with the campaign until we get changes in the law to ensure that this never happens again. Keep up the good work. Great to see you all here. Thanks very much.